as the moon hung high in the sky, and the night draped thickly around my small isolated house. An eerie silence permeated the air. I had always been comfortable in my solitude, but tonight something felt different. I was sitting in the living room, tucked away in the corner, engrossed in a book. The dim light from the lamp cast long shadows across the room, and I could feel a chill creeping up my spine. Suddenly, I became aware of a faint sound, a distant scratching noise, like claws against wood. I brushed it off as my imagination, but curiosity got the better of me. I cautiously rose from my seat, my heart pounding in sync with my hesitant footsteps. I tiptoed to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain, and peered into the night. The darkness outside was impenetrable, but the scratching noise continued, growing louder and more persistent. Unease washed over me, and I made my way to the front door. With each step, the sound intensified, reverberating through the walls and echoed inside my head. Anxiety gripped me as I hesitated before turning the doorknob, but my curiosity compelled me to continue. As I stepped outside into the cold night, the crisp air only amplified my unease. The house stood shrouded in darkness, the only light emanating from a flickering street lamp, casting eerie shadows that danced across the yard. The sound, now a cacophony of scratching and scraping, seemed to echo from all directions, enveloping me in a haunting chorus. I strained my ears, trying to discern its origin. It seemed to be coming from the backyard, so I trudged cautiously towards it, my breath shallow and my heart pounding in my chest. With each step, the noise intensified. It was as if unseen creatures were emerging from the very bowels of the earth. As I entered the backyard, I carefully scanned the area. My senses were on high alert, and every nerve in my body screamed to retreat, but something compelled me to move forward, to uncover the source of this torment. In the corner of the garden, hidden amidst the overgrowth, I discovered an old, weathered shed. The scratching noises reverberated from within its rotting walls, sending shivers down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating whether to proceed or flee, but the lure of the unknown won out. Gingerly, I inched closer to the crumbling structure. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air, and the sound emanating from the shed fearsome. With a trembling hand, I reached out to open the door, asking myself if I was prepared for the horrors that lay behind it. The door creaked open, revealing a sight that would forever be etched into my memory. Inside, shadows bled into one another, vague forms darting and slithering through the darkness. An overwhelming dread consumed me. I couldn't tear my eyes away. As my vision adjusted to the dimness, I saw them, beady eyes, glowing sinisterly, reflecting the menace that they harbored within. It was an army of rats, their claws scraping against the rotting floorboards, their frenzied bodies writhing and scuttling. Their presence sent a shiver down my spine, and my breath caught my throat. Fear paralyzed me as I watched the horde of vermin fill every nook and cranny of the shed, their numbers seemingly endless. The scratching sounds transformed into a macabre symphony of horror. With renewed energy, I slammed the door shut, escaping from the menacing scene. My heart pounded against my ribcage, and panic welled up inside me. But within that fear, a determination kindled, urging me to rid myself of this nightmarish infestation. I armed myself with traps, poison, and determination. Days turned to nights, and nights blended into one another as my battle against the rats raged on. The scratching sounds ceased, replaced by silence, and eventually I emerged victorious. But the echoes of that terrifying symphony never truly left me. Even now, when the wind howls and the night is shrouded in darkness, I can still hear the phantom sound of scurrying claws, reminding me of the horrors that lurk beyond the safety of my home. I've always been captivated by the allure of the unknown. Growing up in a small village in Japan, my curiosity often got the better of me. Perhaps it was this restless spirit that led me to rent a cabin in the heart of the dense woods. Little did I know that this decision would unearth a bone-chilling tale that would forever haunt my dreams. The cabin was tucked away in a secluded corner, surrounded by towering trees, their branches swaying ominously in the wind. It was a humble abode, with creaky wooden floors and a stone fireplace that provided warmth in the bitter winter nights. But as the days turned to weeks, a sense of unease began to settle upon me. At first it was subtle. I would hear whispers drifting through the air, barely audible but unmistakable. There were nights when I would catch glimpses of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the tree line. A shiver would crawl up my spine, and I would brush it off as a figment of my overactive imagination. However, the events that unfolded one eerie evening would make me question my rationality. It was a night like any other, with the moon casting an ethereal glow on the forest floor. As I cozied up near the fireplace, I heard a soft tapping on the cabin windows. Startled, I turned my gaze towards the source, only to be met with empty darkness. Brushing it off as a trick of the wind, I resumed my reading. But the tapping persisted, growing louder and more insistent. With a racing heart, I tiptoed towards the window and cautiously peeked outside. What I saw froze the blood in my veins. The trees were in a twisted dance, their branches snaking towards the cabin like grotesque fingers on a skeletal hand. The tapping seemed to emanate from their branch as if compelling me to surrender to their sinister wishes. Panic took hold of me, and I stumbled back from the window. Scrambling to my feet, I reached for the front door, determined to escape this nightmare. But as I turned the doorknob, a chilling wind howled through the cracks, slamming the door shut with a force that shook the entire cabin. I was trapped. A sense of dread washed over me as I retreated back into the safety of the living room. It was then that I noticed an old book resting on a dusty shelf. Its worn pages beckoned to me, as if there was a tale it yearned to tell. With trembling hands, I flipped through the pages, my eyes wide with anticipation. The book chronicled the tale of a Japanese girl, much like myself, who had once lived in the very same cabin. She too had been drawn to the mysteries of the forest, but her curiosity had unleashed a malevolent spirit that cursed her existence. My parents were out for the night, leaving me alone in the eerie silence. With the internet as my only companion, I settled onto the couch, ready to immerse myself in the digital abyss. As I scrolled through various websites, a strange sound caught my attention. It was a faint crying, almost like a desperate plea for help. Curiosity got the better of me, and I followed the eerie sound as it echoed from the depths of my own home. I cautiously descended into the basement, the cold air causing a shiver to run down my spine. The cries grew louder, having transformed into a heart-wrenching sob. I couldn't ignore it. Every fiber of my being propelled me forward. Feeling my way through the darkness, stumbled upon a hidden door. Its presence was unfamiliar to me, as if it had been concealed all this time. Ignoring the voice of reason inside my head, I pushed the door open, revealing a haunting scene that would forever be etched into my mind. Within the dimly lit room stood a mirror, tarnished and shattered. The cries, now haunting screams, intensified as they mirrored my own panic. But instead of finding solace in my reflection, I was horrified to witness a sinister figure unveiled by the jagged shards. It was a demonic clone of myself, dressed in tattered clothes, with eyes that gleamed with a sinister glow, its mouth twisted into a sinister grin, as if it had been waiting for this moment to strike. My own voice emitted from its lips a distorted symphony of mockery and terror. Frozen in fear, I watched with horror as the doppelganger lunged towards me, its jagged fingernails extending like claws. Panic consumed me, but it was too late to escape. With a swift and merciless strike, the demonic clone pierced through my chest, stealing the very essence of my existence. As my vision blurred and darkness encased my consciousness, I couldn't help but wonder how this nightmare had become a reality. Was it a mere trick of the internet? A warning for those who tread in its darkest corners? Or perhaps a malevolent force? Lurking within our very lives, the truth remains a mystery. But as you navigate the boundless abyss of the internet, be wary of the cries that beckon you towards the unknown. For within the shadows, a demonic clone may yearn to claim your soul, leaving behind only echoes of your existence, forever lost in the abyss. Sleep tight